There's a quiet group of people in this world, men and women, who move through life a little differently. They aren't bitter, broken, or afraid of love. They simply don't feel drawn to marriage, and that confuses others. Because society has always told us that marriage is the ultimate goal, the proof of maturity, stability, and success. So when someone chooses not to chase it, people ask, what's wrong? But maybe nothing is wrong. Maybe some people just understand themselves deeply enough to know what peace means to them. It's strange how silence feels louder when you live differently. When you say, I don't really see myself getting married, the room shifts. People glance at you like you just confessed something tragic. They assume it's loneliness, fear, or a broken past. But the truth is often gentler. Sometimes people who aren't interested in marriage have simply learned to value solitude. Not as an escape, but as a home. They've built a life where peace doesn't depend on another person's presence. Psychologically, these people often possess what's called high self-sufficiency. It's not arrogance, it's inner stability. Their happiness isn't easily shaken by external circumstances. They enjoy companionship, but they don't crave constant validation. They can love without ownership. They can care without control. And that balance confuses a world that still measures love through commitment papers and rituals. For many men, this mindset begins quietly, often after observing what marriage has become around them. They see couples living together but disconnected. They watch people lose their individuality to please someone else. They see families that stay together not because of love, but because of fear. Fear of judgment, of being alone, of starting over. And slowly, they start asking a question most people avoid. Is this what I really want? That question doesn't come from pain. It comes from awareness. Awareness that love and marriage aren't the same thing. You can have one without the other. You can love deeply without ever needing to sign your name on a line to prove it. In fact, psychologists say that people who aren't interested in marriage often have a strong internal locus of control, meaning their sense of fulfillment comes from within, not from social approval. They're guided by self-awareness more than social pressure. It's not that they don't believe in connection, they just believe in freedom within connection. They want relationships that breathe, not ones that suffocate. They prefer honesty over performance. They'd rather have genuine moments than grand promises. And in a world obsessed with forever, that mindset feels rebellious. But it's not rebellion, it's clarity. There's a story I once heard about a man who spent his entire life in love with silence. He wasn't lonely, he had friends, lovers, laughter, but he always returned to his own company like it was sacred. When people asked him why he never married, he said, "Because I'm already in a lifelong relationship with peace." That line stayed with me, because maybe that's the essence of it. People who aren't interested in marriage aren't running from something. They're staying with something. Their calm, their rhythm, their truth. Psychologically, such people often have a deeper connection with introspection. They think before they commit. They analyse before they promise. Not because they're cold, but because they've seen what happens when love turns into obligation. They understand that when two people get married without understanding themselves first, the relationship becomes a negotiation between insecurities, and they'd rather avoid that cycle entirely. Some of them have watched their parents' marriages crumble quietly behind closed doors, not through fights, but through years of emotional distance. Some have seen friends lose themselves trying to fit into a version of love that doesn't feel authentic, and they realise they don't want a life filled with compromise disguised as stability. They don't want a relationship where routine replaces connection. That realization doesn't make them pessimistic, it makes them selective. They don't say, "I'll never love." They say, if love comes, it must come with honesty and peace. And if it doesn't, they're content on their own. That kind of contentment is rare. It comes from understanding that loneliness and solitude are two different things. Loneliness is when you crave company and don't have it. Solitude is when you enjoy your own company and protect it. In fact, modern psychology has started recognizing this as a growing phenomenon. People choosing self-actualization over traditional life structures, it's not avoidance, it's evolution. When your mind matures, your priorities shift from what looks right to what feels right. Marriage for some simply doesn't align with their rhythm of life. They see fulfillment not in ceremony, but in self-awareness, and yet the world still struggles to accept this peace. There's a social narrative that says, if you're not married, you must be incomplete. But the truth is, completion is not something you find through another person. It's something you discover when you stop needing another person to define you. These individuals often live life with quiet purpose. They focus on growth, art, passion, travel, stillness. They might love deeply, even commit deeply, but without needing a ring or legal tie to prove it. For them, love isn't something to be trapped inside expectations. It's something to be experienced freely, fully, and sometimes fleetingly. There's beauty in that kind of detachment, not coldness, detachment. The ability to love without losing yourself, the ability to share your world without surrendering your peace, the ability to walk away when something no longer aligns, not out of pride, but out of self-respect. It takes strength to live this way, because it means walking against the current. It means answering the same question, when will you get married? Again and again, with a calm smile, knowing that peace doesn't need to be explained. Maybe people who aren't interested in marriage have simply outgrown the idea that love must always lead to ownership. Maybe they understand that love, in its purest form, asks for nothing. It just exists. And maybe, just maybe, that's not the absence of commitment. It's the presence of truth. It's strange how society romanticizes marriage as the only proof of love, yet so many married people feel unseen. Maybe that's why those who aren't drawn to marriage see it differently, not as rebellion, but as realism. They've observed how quickly forever can turn into routine, how promises can become pressure, and how passion can fade beneath the weight of responsibility. And somewhere inside, they quietly decide that they'd rather build a life that feels peaceful than one that only looks perfect. These people often have something psychologists call secure self-attachment, the ability to feel emotionally fulfilled without constant reassurance from others. It's not that they're cold or unfeeling. In fact, many of them love deeply, but differently. Their love doesn't need to be owned. It doesn't need validation from tradition. It's gentle, private, mature. The kind of love that doesn't seek attention, only understanding. They don't chase partners to fill a void. They connect because they want to share what's already full. That's a huge difference. When you're content within, relationships become a choice, not a necessity. You don't look for someone to complete you. You look for someone who can grow with you. And if that doesn't come, you don't panic. You don't feel behind. You simply live. Because your life already feels whole. Many people who are uninterested in marriage also carry a quiet fear, not of love, but of losing themselves. They've seen how easily individuality can dissolve in long-term commitment. The we starts to erase the me. Dreams shrink, passions fade, and suddenly, two people who once promised to walk together are just walking beside each other, no longer seeing, no longer listening. For the self-aware mind, that's not love, that's survival, and survival is no way to live. This doesn't mean they reject companionship. It means they crave authenticity over attachment. They prefer presence over permanence. They don't need someone to stay forever. They need someone who's real while they're here. That's a difficult truth for many to accept, because we've been conditioned to believe that love's value lies in its duration. But the wise know, love's beauty lies in its depth, not its length. There's also an emotional intelligence that grows within people who choose not to marry. They understand that relationships are mirrors. Every person we meet shows us something about ourselves, our fears, our needs, our boundaries. They don't see love as an endpoint. They see it as an experience of growth. Sometimes that growth lasts a lifetime, sometimes it lasts a season. Both are valuable, both are real, and perhaps that's why they seem so calm about it. They don't carry the anxiety of chasing timelines. They don't measure success through rings or ceremonies. Their peace comes from a simple realization that love, at its core, isn't a transaction, it's a reflection. You give, you learn, you evolve. That's enough. From a psychological view, many of these people are introspective avoidants, not in the unhealthy sense, but in the evolved one. They find meaning in solitude because it gives them space to think, to feel, to create. They aren't avoiding intimacy, they're protecting clarity. And because they don't rush into commitments, their emotional energy becomes more focused, more intentional. They may have fewer relationships, but those relationships are often deeper, cleaner, and more peaceful. Still, this path isn't without struggle. There are moments when even the calmest heart feels the weight of solitude. There are nights when silence feels heavy, and every sound in the room reminds you that you're walking a road most people don't understand. But even then, these individuals find strength in knowing that their peace is self-chosen. They remind themselves that loneliness is better than living a life that doesn't feel honest. There's a deep wisdom in that, to choose authenticity over acceptance, because society is loud, and it keeps whispering that marriage equals maturity, that partnership equals purpose. But maybe purpose isn't found in being chosen. Maybe it's found in choosing yourself every day, choosing to be honest about what kind of life you want, even if it doesn't match the crowd's expectations. And when you see these people, quiet, focused, content, it's easy to mistake them for detached or emotionless. But if you sit with them long enough, you realize they're some of the most grounded souls you'll ever meet. They've simply made peace with uncertainty. They don't need guarantees to feel secure. They trust that whatever belongs to them will align naturally, and what doesn't will drift away without bitterness. That's emotional maturity. To release control and still remain open. To accept love when it comes and let it go when it fades, without losing yourself in either. These people often live with a sense of spiritual independence. They find meaning in nature, creativity, solitude, faith, things that don't demand performance. Their happiness isn't loud, but it's steady. It doesn't depend on anniversaries or titles. It's found in small routines, morning light through the window, quiet evenings with music, the satisfaction of living life on their own terms. And maybe that's what confuses others the most, the calm, the peace of not chasing what everyone else is chasing, the confidence to live without apology. Because when a person truly accepts themselves, they stop needing validation from traditions. They stop needing to fit. And in that freedom, life becomes lighter, simpler, more beautiful. People who aren't interested in marriage aren't anti-love. They're pro-truth. They're not against companionship. They just refuse to settle for noise. Their heart beats for meaning, not milestones. They don't need an audience to feel loved. They just need alignment. And maybe that's what the world will eventually understand. That love isn't measured by vows, rings, or ceremonies. It's measured by peace. By the way your mind feels when you wake up next to someone. By the way your spirit feels when you walk through your days. When love makes you smaller, it's not love. When peace disappears, it's not connection, it's attachment. And when your freedom starts to fade, that's not partnership, that's possession. The psychology of those who aren't drawn to marriage is not rooted in fear. It's rooted in freedom, the freedom to choose truth over expectation, growth over performance, and inner peace over social applause. They've simply realized what many take a lifetime to learn, that the most important relationship you'll ever have is with yourself. And once that bond is steady, everything else, love, companionship, or even solitude, becomes an extension of peace, not a replacement for it.